So good morning. Happy Sunday. It's always wonderful to see all of you here. I really appreciate it, and I want you to hear it and to know it, that it means a lot to see each and every one of you here on Sundays. It means a lot to me as the minister of this congregation and a part of the leadership of this community, but it also means much more to me than that. What I understand by you being here is that you really care about your spiritual well-being and the well-being of this planet. It is my feeling that if it's up to anybody, it's pretty much up to us. So thank you for being here. I hope this morning is inspirational and enlightening and supportive for you. We've seen another major troubling week with the experience that came about in San Bernardino this week. Once again, another senseless act of violence, an event which left far too many dead or injured, and way too many hearts that are searching for answers. When the situation happened out there, my thoughts immediately came to my friend, Reverend George Hahn, who is the minister at CSL San Bernardino. Last year, George and I were part of a prayer group for a while, and I got to know him. What I got to know was what is within each and every one of us, and that is a sometimes frail, sometimes searching, sometimes suffering human being. Not long after the situation at Inland Regional Center made the news, George posted to our minister's listserv. And of course he did what anyone would do. He asked for prayer. He asked for all of us to embody the reality of peace and the presence of poise, and to help bring that about there. After he posted, he and the students that were in the class at CSL San Bernardino that he was teaching went into prayer. Because of his post, I'm sure many ministers went into prayer, and I'm equally sure that many congregations went into prayer. That's what we do here. We hold the line of truth in front of anything and everything. We recognize no obstacle as an obstacle to that truth. So my question today is, what do you think is going on with this world? It seems like almost every day we are badgered with horrific news flashes of desperation, of dying, of one taking the life of another. It just seems endless. I know in some arenas this is portrayed, and it is their understanding that this is actually the beginning of the end, and that kind of end is even foretold in Scripture. I'm really glad I'm part of a teaching that doesn't subscribe to that thinking. But I do know this: when I turn on the news and I watch it, which is extremely infrequently, by the way, I feel very moved and very small in terms of being able to really help or effect change. And thinking about this, because I couldn't think of anything else, what I came to was that perhaps we need to change our perspective and recognize that this might just be a call to love. In fact, perhaps this time, this right here, right now experience that we are having is really perfect if we perceive it as an opening to a larger consciousness, to a greater universal mindset, one that more completely embraces the awareness that we, as life on this planet, are one. I believe there's a quote from Rumi, that 13th century Persian scholar, that fits here. Perhaps he was talking not only about our soul encounters, but about our journey as a species when he said, the wound is the place where the light enters us. Perhaps it takes this ungracious expose of violence to bring about a greater truth and a brighter light. Many years ago in a basic science of mind class, I heard a minister I love share a beautiful understanding of how he perceived violence and mayhem in the world. The focus of this class was on grasping a deeper understanding of the presence of God as being within and a part of all beings and every situation, even those like what has happened in San Bernardino. In this class, a student struggled with grasping and understanding that any God worth merit could be present in acts of violence, such as events like the Holocaust, the incredible experiences that we, mankind, throughout history seem to have embarked upon. This minister's offering to his student was simple in construct. He related that perhaps we as a species can be looked at as being on a developmental scale, just as we might apply to the life of a human being. We start out as newborns, perfectly helpless and totally unaware. We move through infancy to toddlerhood. We become a preschooler. Ultimately, we enter the school-age realm. Eventually, we embark on puberty. I don't know about you guys, but that was a train wreck in process in my world. Someday, if we hold on, we become manageable, responsible, productive, and loving members of a society. But it takes a lot to get us there. Yet as the seasons of life pass, one thing does happen, and that is we deepen in wisdom and get brighter in our own internal light. The idea shared in that class was perhaps we as an entire species are very young. Perhaps we were really immature in our development. And so we exhibit gangly, nose-picking, unattractive behaviors similar to those we might see with a young child or adolescent. Now, as parents, when we see these with our kids, we know that as the child grows up, he or she will mature. They'll stop picking their nose, for God's sakes, okay? At least in public, okay? They'll gain skill sets. They'll grow in poise. Ultimately, they will portray a more complete array of social values and mores. Perhaps here, these ravaging worldwide experiences that we've seen lately are simply the expressions of a species that just needs to grow up a little bit. Perhaps as we mature, when we see these occurrences, and we will, we know they will happen. They will continue to for a while. But instead of embarking upon a path of diversity, we will embark upon a path of compassion and love and take on an attitude that participates in a mindset of wholeness rather than a belief in the divisive attitude of we versus them. In Japanese art, there's the technique of kintsukuroi. I think I'm saying that right. That means, roughly translated, to repair with gold. The art of repairing pottery with gold or silver lacquer is essentially what we're talking about here. Once it is broken, we use a gold filament, a gold chemicalization to bring the parts back together. And the understanding is that that piece of work is more beautiful for having been broken because it has experienced that and yet come back together. Now, I am sure, I know this for many of you, but I am sure that even those that haven't had this experience for, if we sat down and we had little private one-on-one conversations, what we would each learn about the other is that we have been strengthened through the adversities and the troubles and the difficulties that we have experienced. That those adverse winds of life on life's terms have brought us a depth of being that we didn't have before those things happened. I know this is certainly true for my life. I would be the shadow of a woman that I am today if I hadn't had some things happen. Is that true for any of you? So might we apply that reconstructive mindset of Kintsukuroi that Kintsukuroi embodies, and looking at situations like San Bernardino or Paris or Charleston, where many of our brothers and sisters sitting in a house of worship were brought down. Many of those ungainly, unacceptable behaviors that were exhibited against brothers and sisters by brothers and sisters. There's no difference in me and the one who held the gun this past week, except mindset, except belief. Everything that any individual has ever done is issued from mindset and belief. Azim Khamisa got it right when he spoke about the murder of his 21-year-old son by a gang member who is still now serving prison time. He said he recognized there was a victim at both ends of the barrel. As we use this idea as a lens to enlarge our understanding of the way the world is turning, what else can we as a community and as a teaching do? Well, I will tell you this. It is simple and yet it is strong. The science of mind teaching will never back down from the statement and the belief and the anchoring in truth that there is a power of goodness that is greater than any one of us, that is always present and always at our beck and call. If we find ourselves unsure of this presence, if we have uncertainties about this power, perhaps we can consider for a moment what happened the last time we turned on the radio in our car. What happened? You just expected the radio waves to work, right? You can't see them. You can't feel them. I've never touched them. Yet I have no doubt that when I turn that radio on, if I'm in the right part of the mountains, I'm going to be able to play some music that I want to listen to. Okay? Might have to go to Asheville for some of it, but that's okay. I just know it will work. You know it will work, don't you? We know that it works when we turn toward it. The same is true with God. We must remind ourselves, we must insist within ourselves that we will hold tight to a belief in the unseen, to that which is close at our side, closer than our neck vein, and always, always nearer than our hands and feet. We must refuse to cop to the belief that perhaps we are existing in something that one might term a God-forsaken world. We must discipline within ourselves against the indulgence in fear and in worry. As we go through this holy season, let each and everyone here make a commitment to be the balm of love to those riddled with anxiety. We are the ones with the mental training. Every teaching, every denomination on the face of this planet has faith. They have faith in God. We have something bigger. We understand divine stuff lives here. We have faith of God. Okay? And on top of that, we have the mental training. We must live up to this teaching. Let each and every one of us be mindful that there are those around us who are already deeply overburdened with the stresses of life. Let us make a promise not to share a careless comment that might add to someone's anxiety or contribute to a belief in a we versus them mentality. Let us remember, too, that the littlest ones, the children, are looking to us for confidence that this world is a safe place. Don't we owe them a world? that works better for everyone. Why did you come here? I know that's why I'm here. Let us recognize that now is a time for each and every one of us to lead with the gold that lives within us. Because it was there, we weren't born without it. When we consider this developmental nature and this progress that our species may be making, perhaps we can look at the lesson learned from The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams for some wisdom. In this case, the horse is talking to the rabbit, the Velveteen Rabbit, in the nursery one time after all the people go. You know, they do their thing when the people are gone, right? I think that happens, actually. I'm not sure, but, you know, Elf on the Shelf and all that, why not, right? So the horse, he tells the rabbit this about becoming real. He says, it's just like this. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have sharp edges or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off and your eyes drop out, hello? And you get loose in the joints and very shabby, okay? But these things don't matter at all because once you're real, you can't be ugly except the people who do not understand. What the truth is that once you are real, your realness calls to the realness within every other being on this planet. We must recognize that the horrors the newscasters routinely fling at us are one thing only, and that is a call to love. If you have to watch the news, watch it once from that mindset. Don't watch it 17 times in the loop. Don't turn it on at 8:30 and watch it until you go to bed at midnight. You've heard it. Turn it off. We must daily renew our subscription to love. We must pay the fees with our daily spiritual practice and hold tightly to truth through the practice of straightforward, clear-headed, love-oriented thought and action. We must turn our eyes to the goodness, the godness that we see in the middle of these horrors. As with all these events, the helpers are always present. When this situation evolved in San Bernardino, the first picture I pulled up online was of the police vehicles and the EMS vehicles and the bomb squads. They had the whole area cordoned off. They got all the innocent people that needed to be removed from the surrounding area out of there. Okay? They came in and they did their job just like that. They didn't question whether they could or not. They just did it to the best of their ability. There's a video at large out there that relates an officer who came upon a group of office workers huddled in a little hidey hole. They found a little sanctuary and hid. And he went to them. They were absolutely beside themselves. And here is what he said. He said to them, "Keep calm and know I will take a bullet for you." 2,000 years ago, we were told in biblical lore that a small child came to bring a better idea to humanity. As the story goes, several decades later, he died in order to prove his ideas of love were true for everyone. That same willingness to give up one's own life so that others may live was echoed in that officer's voice and in his willingness to stand and sacrifice his life. This is the proof. This is it. That is all we need. That Christ consciousness can break through every barrier of fear and doubt. Every generation has its challenges. Ours is the choice to give into our base urges and to repeat the abhorrent lessons of history, or to rise up and be the gold within. It only takes 51%. Ernest said that in his teaching. He said that is true within us. You only have to know a little bit more than you don't know. We only have to live truth a little bit more than we don't live it on this planet for the gold and the light to shine. Let us choose, each one, to move forward in calmness and prayer, knowing that the power of love and compassion can break through the walls of ignorance like the rays of the dawn that come and dispel the shadows of the night. Now is the time for us to step up and to do our work, to become courageous in our kindness, to be courageous in our compassion, to be courageous in our love. The answers are within our hearts, and the light is within our souls. When we are firm in the conviction of this truth of our being, there is no power on this earth or in the ignorance of mankind that can turn back the dawn of this new day, a new earth, a new heaven. Ernest Holmes told us, love is the grandest healing and drawing power on earth. So as we live these holidays, whether you do it here or whether you do it somewhere else, regardless of where you go, let us live this truth. Let us light a candle of our awareness that never can be extinguished by any darkness or any lie. Let us live this truth so that not only our lives are changed, but we change the entire planet for each and every one. I love you. Thank you.